While the world awaits the end of the Russia-Ukraine war, the North Korean leader is making sure this never happens. If you look at this satellite image, it might look like a simple village located close to the mountain. However, the moment you zoom in, it has underground secret entrances that no average person can identify. An entrance that leads toward one of the largest weapons factories in the world, which is equal to the size of 25 football pitches. And it is located in the Kanggye region of North Korea. Since the war began, the ties between Russia and North Korea have become stronger than what it was a century ago. Sometimes the Russian defense minister visits North Korea to buy forbidden weapons, while sometimes Putin and Kim exchange letters about their growing friendship. And the actual reason behind their visit was this factory, which is known as Kanggye tractor plant that handles more than 20,000 employees underground. From manufacturing short-range ballistic missiles to detonators to even nuclear weapons, this factory is the reason why the Russia-Ukraine war is far from the end. Why has North Korea, despite its decades of political isolation and lack of easy access to global trade routes, managed to build one of the largest weapons factories in the world? Where did it get all the money to reach this far? And why is Russia, instead of requesting China, joining North Korea for more weapons? Well, these satellite images, the meetings, and the never-ending weapons of Russia lead to a lot of questions about where the world is heading. And in this video, we are going to find the answers to them all. Because this is the deep dive into the mysterious North Korean artillery factory producing shells for Russia. November 29, 1991. Location, Kanggye region of North Korea. Time, 8:30 p.m. The Korean Central News Agency, or KCNA, was busy airing its regular broadcast. As millions of North Koreans were tuned to their channel, the KCNA ensured to entertain their audience for the whole night. However, what they failed to realize is that this night will be remembered for centuries. Because right after a few minutes of going live on television, a massive explosion was heard. The explosion was so big that it not only shook the entire building of the news agency, but also destroyed the windows of every house in the region. When everyone looked outside, they were astonished to notice shells and missiles from the blast heading in every direction, and a fiery mushroom cloud rising to the size of a mountain. It was like the country was attacked by an enemy nation or an enormous firecracker factory burning alive. However, in this case, it was more destructive than a firecracker. The explosion immediately forced residents to flee the entire Kanggye region, but their efforts failed to save their lives. The entire area within 40 kilometers of the explosion was covered in flames, killing more than 6,000 people, including children and pregnant women. When KCNA went out to discover the cause of the explosion, they were baffled to realize that it was caused by a secret so-called Kanggye tractor factory, about which no news agency or even the citizens were aware of its existence. Furthermore, they discovered that a higher official of the factory named Tak Chunsen negligently used the gunpowder, which became the reason for this explosion. Despite him alerting other officials, they failed to control the fire due to steel doors remaining open. It was only after 60 policemen reached the location and closed the steel doors, killing around 14 policemen in the process. Now, this piece of information was perfect for KCNA and the famous North Korean newspaper agency, The Shinmun, because they could broadcast it to the whole world and attract a greater audience in their direction. But before they could take any action, Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-un's grandfather, entered the picture and directed all the news agencies of the country to not say any word about this. For the next 20 days, all communication and movement were completely banned in the Kanggye region. And the reason behind this was that the North Korean leader did not want the US and its other enemies to identify what they were secretly pursuing. However, despite trying their best to hide their picture, the US satellites managed to gather suspicious activity and found these pictures. These images show a before and after footage of the damage caused by the explosion. Before, the factory area was greener as it's located close to the mountains. But after the explosion, you can see that a lot of effort has been made to clean up the area. Now, for years, the world has been trying to figure out what happened in this area. However, due to North Korea's strategy of keeping its activities secret, it was hard to figure this out. Until one day, a North Korean defector named Chung Kap-reul came in to clarify the entire situation. Now, this guy was not just a normal citizen. He was actually the former director of the ammunitions research facility, and he also worked for a few years at this mysterious Kanggye tractor plant. A perfect guy to explain what's actually happening inside. But after hours of questioning, what he said was hard to digest, and all the doubts that the experts had through satellite images began clearing their way. Chung explained that the reason why it's called Kanggye Tractor Plant is to hide its identity from the general public. In reality, this factory is considered the mother of their entire military industry by Kim Il-sung, because the ammunition produced at this facility is directly exported to countries like Libya, Syria, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, and of course, Russia. Every year, the factory produces 126,000 pieces of mortar ammunition and 1.76 million pieces of rifle ammunition. Furthermore, it also manufactures Scuds, the Hwasong's 1 and 2 missiles, anti-tank missiles, and all types of land-to-air, air-to-land, and air-to-surface missiles. Not to forget, an enormous amount of nitric acid and urea is also produced in the factory, which is an essential element for developing nuclear weapons. This makes it clear that behind Putin's army of nuclear weapons, North Korea has a bigger hand. But in terms of size, Chung claims that the rules of the factory are so strict that he himself never managed to identify the true size of this place. Nevertheless, he did describe that the factory is 176,000 square meters long, which is equal to the size of 25 football pitches, and it does have a secret entrance to a 1.8 kilometer long hill. If we talk about the number of employees, then according to Chung, more than 20,000 engineers work at the factory who are not allowed to go outside. And even if they decide to leave the factory, the secret police, which is entirely different from the North Korean police, will be standing to keep them inside. This secret police also body search every worker to find anything like a lighter or matchstick to avoid any incident like 1991. Surprisingly, even the closest officials of Kim's grandfather are not allowed to go inside. On one occasion, Kim Il-sung's closest official, Han Tok-soo, visited to see the factory. But he too was denied entry based on reasons of how important this factory is to the North Korean leadership. Now this raises questions about workers getting frustrated or having suicidal thoughts for never leaving this place. Well, this is where it gets more interesting, because inside this facility, Kim's grandfather has created a mini-city for all the workers, so they will never feel the need to go outside. For example, the factory has a stadium, a swimming pool, a medical clinic, and every other facility that would be required to live a healthy lifestyle. Moreover, within these 20,000 workers, multiple generations have already passed through. This means a father who works at the factory will bring his son to learn the skills. And when their children grows up, he will bring his own son to learn the same skills, and so on. But if anyone gets injured while working, there is also a strict code of conduct not to share or discuss anything about their injuries with others. Still, all of this information was still coming out of the mouth of a North Korean defector. So, unless we don't have clear proof, then much of it could be bigger or smaller than what we expect. Because Chung also said there are 14 more factories like this in North Korea, and they named this one Factory Number 26. Moreover, there are 2,500 underground facilities in North Korea, which are divided into underground storage facilities, underground artillery sites, and even underground air bases. But, keeping in mind the size of the country, believing this information makes it harder than we thought. So for years, the experts and US intelligence were looking for more clear-cut evidence of this factory. A sneak peek of the inside, but it's next to impossible to get through. In 1989, the secret police of this factory arrested a researcher named Pyo Il-yong, who was trying to sneak inside the facility. Later, it was discovered that she had been bribed by American intelligence to gather any information about this location. Even U.S. citizens born in South Korea have failed to get inside this facility. This 62-year-old spy was paid by South Korean intelligence to gather footage from mysterious North Korea, but he also failed to hide from the vision of the secret police and was sentenced to 10 years of prison or hard labor. So, all we had was these satellite images that hinted towards multiple underground facilities and possible entrances towards massive structures. For example, this enormous tube-shaped underground tunnel with 2 secret entrances. Then, this image describes an entrance toward a giant mountain. Then, old and new entrances towards the mountain, and more and more and more. Even this one with 2 helipads, possibly for the North Korean leader. Fortunately, in 2013, something happened that changed the entire image of North Korea in front of the world. An event occurred that proved years of hard work of experts in gathering these images was not a waste of their time. And that event happened when Kim Jong-un himself visited the most awaited Kanggye General Tractor Plant. At that moment, every piece of evidence shared by the North Korean defector was right in front of their eyes. The same location, the same swimming pool described, the stadium, the managers and their families who followed the tradition of remaining inside. But this also raises a serious question of why the North Korean leader would finally allow KCNA, their biggest news agency, to enter this factory, take as many photos as they want, and show it to the world. You see, since Kim Jong-un came to power, he has been very straightforward and fearless about sharing North Korea's vision with the world. From warning to nuke the entire US, to sharing champagne with Putin for attacking Ukraine, this man is the most dangerous dictator of the 21st century. A dictator who has even killed the entire family of his uncle and his ex-girlfriend for breaking North Korean laws. But for his people, he is a living god. However, showing this factory to the world was one of the silly mistakes he committed at the beginning of his leadership. Because 2 years before visiting this facility, Kim came to power in 2011. And since that time, no image of this factory was ever shown to the world. You can see the difference in the maturity on his face from when he first visited this factory to the present time, where he witnesses the launch of a missile. But now we know that North Korea has more than sufficient factories to manufacture and export weapons worldwide. And the actual question is, how did it manage to build an army of weapons factories? Who supported them in building this secret empire? Well, it turns out all this time, the right hand of North Korea was none other than Russia itself. Because back in the 1960s, North Korea was still scratching the surface of developing its weapons factory. And the level of destruction that was caused in the Korean War made them realize that they were immensely backward in defending their country. During that time, Kim's grandfather said, "If war breaks out, the US and Japan will also be involved. In order to prevent their involvement, we have to be able to produce rockets that fly as far as Japan. Therefore, it is the mandate of the military academy to nurture those personnel who are able to develop mid- and long-range missiles." This desperate need to become independent was ignored by the majority of the world. But the only country that walked in to support them was Russia. Not to forget, the Soviet Union was the first country in the world who recognized North Korea as an independent country in 1948. And when they decided to support North Korea during their most difficult time, the trust between the two grew on a massive scale. Despite the enormous destruction caused by the Korean War, the Soviet Union rebuilt 93% of factories in North Korea. Furthermore, in 1963, the relations between the two reached an all-time high when the Soviet Union delivered North Korea's first batch of SA-2 missiles. This delivery gave North Korea a perfect opportunity to reverse engineer their missiles and find out how they built such weapons. But, as easy as it looked, understanding the structure of such deadly weapons was not a layman's job. And as each day passed, the North Korean engineers were still scratching their heads by looking at SA-2 missiles. until August 3rd, 1963, when General Kanggye of the Korean People's Army contacted the then Russian Minister of Defense, Andrei A. Grechko, to help them in developing this missile technology. Fortunately, the Soviet Union accepted their request and sent their experts to teach them. Surprisingly, the Soviet missile engineers did not come alone. They landed in North Korea with German V-1, V-2, Soviet free rocket overground, also called Frog, and some biological weapons that would heavily impress Kim's grandfather. And then the most awaited moment began. The Soviet engineers carefully dismantled every part of these weapons and shared valuable knowledge with North Korean engineers. Year after year, the North Korean engineers learned how to manufacture such weapons. And as per their demand, the Soviet Union began sending more deadly weapons, like coastal defense cruise missiles S-2 Sopka, anti-ship missile P-20, and artillery rocket 3R-10 Luna 2. And from 32 missiles to more than 10,000 anti-tank guided missiles, to even exporting its weapons to Asian and Middle Eastern countries, today, North Korea owes everything to Russia, as they are the foundation on which they built. And even if today North Korea decides not to deliver any weapons to Russia, they still have no other option than to fulfill Putin's demand. Because Russia not only helped North Korea in building weapons, but they also saved their population when they were starving to death. In 1997, when North Korea was severely hit with famine, Russia delivered food and medicine worth 4.5 billion rubles and 370 tons of sugar, canned meat, fish, and milk. When Putin came to power, the relations between the two further grew stronger. In August of 2011, Putin sent 50,000 tons of wheat to North Korea, $5 million worth of flour, and 10,000 tons of grain. But the number of loans grew so much larger that, as of today, North Korea owes around $11 billion to Russia. And this creates a perfect opportunity for Putin to ask North Korea for support. It seems Russia was waiting to play its wild card at the right time, which is exactly what is happening right now. So, what kind of weapons is Russia requesting from North Korea? Why are Putin and his delegates constantly in touch with Kim Jong-un instead of China's Xi Jinping? Well, if we rewind back to Russian defense engineers who helped North Korea build weapons, you would remember that the majority of North Korean weapons are manufactured on the basis of Soviet or Russian designs. Specifically speaking, here's what former UN panel expert Hugh Griffiths, who monitors sanctions on North Korea, said. The North Koreans do have tremendous stockpiles of relatively primitive artillery and rocket systems, some of which are used by the Russians to shell Ukrainian cities and towns. Here is another astonishing statement from a University of Texas professor who studies North Korean arms sales. He said, "The weapons that Russia would demand from North Korea would be 107mm Katyusha rockets, 122mm rocket launchers, 155mm or 122mm artillery shells, other small arms ammunition for machine guns, or automatic rifles." Now, keeping in mind the capacity of Kanggye tractor plant, there is no doubt that Russia is far away from running out of artillery shells, and no one knows how long this war could proceed. Lastly, I want to show you this statement that was recently made in a letter to Putin from Kim Jong-un, where he ensured powerful support of Russia. Quote, "Our friendship was forged in World War II with victory over Japan, and is now fully demonstrating their invincibility and might in the struggle to smash the imperialists' arbitrary practices and hegemony. I am firmly convinced that the friendship and solidarity will be further developed into a long-standing strategic relationship in conformity with the demand of the new era. The two countries will always emerge victorious, strongly supporting and cooperating with each other in the course of achieving their common goal and cause." So, what are your views about the mysterious North Korean factory? Tell us in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and make sure to press that like button if you like this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching.